Last December, I embarked on a culinary adventure across India. And in this series, I'm going to share with you my experience. Along the way, you'll meet the people, discover the flavors, and explore the sights and experience that shaped this trip. So come along as I share my love on a plate in India. This is our annual December trip. Every December during the school holiday, we make a trip back to India. My husband and I, in a way, are a very international couple, right? We're from Taiwan, he's from India, we live in Singapore. So the kids haven't been really traveling because the COVID has stopped us from visiting our home country for the last 3 years. Now that things have opened up again, the Mirchis and I head off to India, arriving at Mumbai International Airport. Actually, the Mumbai airport has recently been renovated. It's very different from the past experience when I arrived in Mumbai. Imagine in the past, you go there, it's like a very dingy, dark airport, and now you go, wow, well lit and beautiful artwork as well. They always made a point to keep on rotating new arts from different parts of India, from different part of artists that they showcase at the Mumbai airport. I'm not the art type of connoisseur that I know who's, what era it presents, but I was always really appreciate the intricacy of the different artwork and how different they are. After a quick stopover, it was time to say goodbye to Mumbai for now as we headed to our next destination. When we go back, Mumbai and Pune are our usual stops, but every time we try to go somewhere new as well. So this time we actually made a point to visit Goa. So Goa is a beach town. I think as you see, the Mirchis are still young. I think kids, boys that age, beach is always very appealing and irresistible for us. And also for me, Goan food is also a very famous type of Indian cuisine, and I wanted to explore that too. So Goa had a very different feel, right? You go there, it's very chill, it's very laid back. People there are not in a hurry. They're super friendly, super, welcoming as well. It's definitely a very different vibe, like a very coastal vibe that you feel suddenly relaxed when you arrive at Goa. And also it's not as, not another huge metropolitan. So now it's suddenly, simple shop, simple roads, people riding their motorcycle without helmet, So this time we stay at a resort in Goa. Immediately they serve us this kokum drink. Kokum is actually a unique fruit in Goa. So everywhere you go, actually they will serve you this nice refreshing drink. Maybe like a lemonade, but much less acidity, but definitely very cooling, little bit acidity, and then a little bit of a sweetness, but the color is beautiful. So we went to the Goan beach right after we arrived. It has this beautiful beige sand and it's very soft and then a wide open sea. Having our lunch. So that was actually those beach huts that basically you sit by the beach and then they offer you the hut and then you have to buy food from them. And with any beach comes time to unwind with a good book. When I visit any city, I try to make a point to visit either the local library and then the local bookstore. And from there, one of the must read books for me are the cookbooks. That was an introductory to the Goan cuisine, actually written 50 years ago. It's interesting also, Goan is the only few state in India that where pork is widely consumed because of the Portuguese influence. That is feel very comforting because, from Taiwan, we eat a lot of pork. So it was also interesting to see how they go about eating the pork and how do they process it, how do they cook it. It's just a different way of showcasing ingredients I'm very familiar with. During our stay at the resort, we came across this lavish setup over in the courtyard. December is actually the wedding season in India because December is a very pleasant month in terms of weather. Also, December is where I think a lot of the holidays are happening. And the resort where we're staying at, there was a wedding every day. And then as you can see in some of the footage, they have very different styles. There was one that was, the groom welcoming the bride in a Jeep. And there's also like a night party focusing on dancing. I always feel like for a lot of them, life is a party, and the wedding is a way that showcase that. They just continue celebration. I really enjoyed that.
The wedding certainly took the Mirchis by surprise.
They were just staring at them. I think they have not experienced Indian wedding. And I think Indian wedding is one of a kind in terms of color, culture, the food they serve, the different sequence of events. A lot of fun to expose them to that.
The next day, I decided it was time to explore some of the food that Goa had to offer.
Okay, so the Goan Poie, or the Goan bread, is also very well known. I wanted to understand a little bit about how do they make Goan bread, how does it come about. So actually in the hotel that I inquire, so they say, okay, actually you can go meet the local bread maker. This is actually a local potter. They call it a local potter, basically a local baker. It's actually just a family that's running their bakery business. So we show up, and then they have their whole setup in terms of their bakery. And then on the side is where the family lives. So the two sons, then the grandma and the mom who does the baking there. So how they started was actually the grandfather, who was always the local baker. The grandfather has since passed away, so now the grandmother is doing the baking. The daughter supports. They start in the morning. They have this big clay oven with no electricity. They actually heat it up in the morning using firewood. And then also that's the time when they start to mix the flour with the yeast, with the salt and the sugar. And then they require at least 3 hours to let it rest and proof. This lady particularly told me she does this 2 rounds. So by the time when the oven is heated up, and then by the time the bread is done proofing, it's almost like 5, 6 o'clock, and that's when they start to shape the bread. So there are 2 types of bread that this baker particularly make. I was doing some research. Usually a Goan bakery, they have 4 kinds of bread, but this one they only have 2. One is the Goan Poie, P-O-I-E. The other one is the bao, which is it's a standard bao that's made in a tin form, usually like 8 or 6 per tin. So the Poie needed more time. So the Poie goes in first. And then after that, they start to put the tin of the bao inside. So we visited at 7 p.m. when she was shaping the bread. And then later we went at 9 again when she was starting to take out the bread. Wow. I thought she was like me in the kitchen. Like, she has no time to talk. Please don't talk to me. And she was sweating. She was really focused because I think there's a task at hand that she needs to be very sharp, because apparently this oven is very, very hot. And then if you miss by a second, things will start to overbake. But you see that she took time and then instructed her son-in-law and daughter to let us enjoy a fresh, hot pao, and then smear with butter, and then let me and the boys try it. It was just crispy on the outside, soft, and you can tear apart in the inside. That was one of a kind. The kids love it. They had a dinner already at that time, 9 o'clock, but we still had quite a few bread after dinner. So that was a really interesting experience to witness how the local Goan potter, which is the local baker, work on a day-to-day basis.
I love cooking based on my travels, so the recipe we'll be exploring today takes some of my learnings from my experience in Goa.
Now I'm back from Goa. One of the dishes I'm inspired to make is actually the Goan Poie. This is an everyday bread that the Goans eat with their breakfast, lunch, and dinner. I'm adapting from this Indian chef called Sanjeev Kapoor, his recipe, so you too can also try it at home. Let's get started.
To start, we're preparing a yeast mixture consisting of water, instant yeast, and a little sugar. The full recipe can be found in the description below.
There's a common question that what's the difference between the Goan Poie and the puri? So puri is something that we commonly see, usually served in the restaurant or any Indian house. Usually just flour and water. And usually the puri is fried. For the Goan Poie, we're actually going to use yeast. Also for Goan Poie, we're going to bake it. We're not going to fry it. So there are 2 types of flours we're going to use today. One is called Maida. Maida is actually all-purpose flour. You can buy anywhere in the supermarket. And then atta is actually whole wheat flour. And you can see it has a little bit like a off-white tinge to it. In the supermarket, if you cannot get whole wheat flour, I think any whole grain flour, just give it another blend of the flour into the mixture.
Measure out both types of flour and then pass them through a sieve.
All right, so I haven't mastered the art of not making a mess when sifting. It's completely normal. Any home cook can understand.
To the flour that did stay in a bowl, add some salt. Then add in your yeast mixture.
So now we're going to start kneading the dough for the Goan Poie.
The kneading process of dough goes through many stages, starting out scruffy and rough like you see here. But how do you know when the dough is done kneading?
There are actually three things that you look for. I would say three things. Number one is your hand needs to be clean. Two is your bowl needs to be clean. Number three is your dough needs to be clean. Once these three things are clean, then you're done kneading your dough and you can let it rest. Kneading is good exercise. See how I'm sweating now. I mean, use a lot of your elbow grease. See my bicep muscle?
Once you hit your 3 signs of clean, turn the dough out and give it a few final turns. Add some oil to a clean bowl, then plop your dough in. Cover and allow to rest for at least an hour or until double in size.
One of the unique ingredients in the Goan Poie is actually wheat bran. However, wheat bran is not easily accessible outside of India. What I'm going to do to substitute wheat bran is actually using oatmeal. What I will do is actually take this oatmeal and grind it into oat bran. So the oat bran will become the substitute to the wheat bran.
As a benchmark, wheat bran is pretty fine, but just keep blending until you get the texture you like.
All right, so I know this is not necessarily authentic Goan Poie to put oat bran, but this is what I have access to at the moment, so we make do what we have. Now the dough for the Goan Poie is ready. It rests about 1 hour. You can see it nice and pop up. I'm going to roll it into small individual balls. All right, I'm not supposed to be so oily. Just now when I coat the bowl, I put quite a lot of oil. But you don't have to put so much oil. Just note to self, as long as it doesn't stick, it's okay, but it's fine.
Using the bench scraper makes things easier. Start by dividing the dough into 2, then divide each half into 6 pieces. Each piece should weigh about 60 grams each.
So I'm trying to get it to be as precise as possible or as even as possible among the different dough, but don't sweat about it.
It's time to set the dough balls aside again because it's time for the rolling.
So what I saw at the Goan local bakery, these ladies are a machine. They can roll the dough in 2 seconds in a perfect round shape. Today I'm going to show you the amateur version.
This amateur suggests pinching and folding the dough into itself until a smooth top is formed. Cover the dough in the oat bran. Then roll out the dough with the even strokes and pressure into a 1/4 inch thick round. Add more oat bran when needed. Transfer the rolled oat dough onto your lined baking sheet.
All right, I'm going to cover the foil. I brought something. Hey, bitch, I am the secret ingredient.
Let the dough proof for a second time for about 30 minutes before placing them in preheated oven 220 degrees Celsius for 10 minutes. The poie should puff up during its time in the oven, and the greater the puff, the better you have done. Lightly golden and delicious looking, you can transfer them to a wooden bowl for serving. Make sure to cover in a tea towel to keep them from drying out.
Now I finished making the Goan Poie. It's nice and warm. The dish I made to accompany it is actually the chicken cafarel. It's also a Portuguese influenced dish. The main ingredients are cilantro, green chilies, and a variety of herbs. And that's the base, then we make it with the whole chicken that's cut into different pieces.
Garnish the chicken casserole with coriander and fried onion slices. There you have it, my take on a Goan Poie, served with a delicious fresh chicken casserole curry. Enjoy the poi fresh out of the oven and savor its steamy goodness.
Goes really well. It has a chew to it, crunch on the outside, and it just goes really well together, like a mouthful of delight. My mouth is watering.
Next time, we are kicking into a high gear as I host my first restaurant pop-up in Pune.